Hello and welcome to Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. So glad to have you with us in the Union Station in our nation's capital, where I did not have quite this welcome. That answer might never come, but as the National Guard comes to town and to the mean streets of Georgetown, I'm going to have the first of a nice two-part conversation about federalization of DC's police department and the broader implications of doing so with political commentator WayneTronics. We've got quite a bit to get to, so let's begin. And joining me now is political commentator WayneTronics. Wayne, welcome to the show. It is great to have you on our program. And let's go ahead and get started. And, I'm in the DMV. We do this show out here in our nation's capital. And I can tell you that, President Trump has federalized the Metropolitan Police Department as of earlier this month. This is under Section 740 of the district's home rule. This is in effect for 30 days unless Congress votes to extend that. And we are seeing other states, as of the time of this recording, 6 states have sent in their National Guard troops. Now, one of the things I want to set the table on for our viewers is that, crime, people talk about crime and then so forth and so on. Is there zero crime in DC? No. Is DC a cesspool as it is, portrayed to be? Also no. And I say that as somebody who co-owns this production company that produces this program for the past 15 years. Crime has no zip code. So, for me, in looking at this, what do you think of all the developments that have gone on in DC? I mean, this seems to be precipitated by a carjacking that occurred with a Doge staffer that initiated this action. What do you think about what you've been seeing and hearing in this?
Well, first off, Eugene, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Glad to talk to you guys about these things. Um, I think we are looking at the beginning of autocracy in America, right? Because statistically, crime is down in the district, right? They were touting how much crime was down just a few months ago, right? And now when this Doge staffer has this alleged incident, right? And I don't want to downplay what seemed to happen, but these people don't have a track record of telling the truth, right? So we have a situation where crime is down, murder is down. There hasn't been this outcry on this level that crime was up until it suited his purpose when the Epstein file conversation came up, right? This is also part of a larger byproduct of the Heritage Foundation and other right wing think tanks who want to use DC as the template, so to speak, right? Where you bring in militarized police in DC, you have National Guard from, I believe, 6 states all over the country descending on DC. They've already said they want to go to Baltimore, Chicago, New York. What do all these places have in common? These are blue cities, right? What they're trying to do, in my opinion, is establish and normalize militarized police in blue cities. So when the midterms come up and these other things happen, right? Because again, they increased the ICE budget by $100 billion, right? So what you are seeing is this conflation of a staffer being carjacked to, okay, now we need to send a police in. I saw a clip on social where Trump was talking about how the National Guard should only be sent in absolute emergencies, disasters, or et cetera, right? And this does not qualify for that. But we know the man to be a hypocrite, right? So we're finding ourselves in a situation, specifically African Americans, they're targeting our community, right? There have been a large conversation within a certain cohort of the Black American community up before the election. They refer to themselves as FBA and ADOS, right? Foundational Black Americans and a descendant of a slave. That their Black American citizenship would protect them from such government overreach. And we're now seeing that's not the case. DC is lovingly known as Chocolate City, right? This is a vibrant Black culture, a vibrant, diverse culture. What they're trying to do is put the boot of the state upon some of the most disadvantaged people, neighborhood wise. If they truly cared about life or death, I'm gonna give you a number. Since the pandemic began, remember these are the same people who didn't take COVID seriously. More people died from COVID in 5 years than all of the homicides in this country since the 1980s. And yes, I fact checked this stat, right? Because I've had this conversation with a couple of, shall I say, my more MAGA inclined people, right? So when it becomes about life and death, then they didn't care. They didn't care about life and death on January 6th, right? They pardoned, what, 1,500 people from January 6th. Police officers died. Congress people were terrified for their life, right? Then call in the National Guard that day, right? So why do you need to do it now? It seems to be a convenient distraction to get people to give the FBI more time to redact his name in the Epstein's file, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do want to kind of touch on on that. You made a lot of really great points here, and especially in terms of what's been happening over the past few weeks. There was a lot of talk about the Epstein files, releasing the files, and that sort of thing. And I kind of sort of hemmed and hawed as to whether or not we should even talk about what's been going on in DC, with the National Guard and everything, because I think that a lot of the media have really, especially in Trump in the first term of Trump's administration, and we're kind of seeing this in even the second administration, that there's a tendency of chasing shiny objects, as opposed to focusing on some of the bigger issues that are going on. Is what Trump, the administration, doing? Is this a real distraction from the Epstein files and what is going on? Because even some of those guys, some of the folks that support him, especially folks like Laura Loomer and all, they're not exactly thrilled with what's going on. In fact, just to remind our viewers, I just want to play a little bit of a montage of what has been bandied about. Here it is.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet. In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
She spends so much time on Fox News, and this is the problem. Was she playing an act? Like, was she trying to play into the energy of the base when she said what she said? The files are on my desk. Billionaires are leaving on private jets to flee accountability. I've seen these tapes. They're absolutely horrific. Blah, 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 blah. Like, what was she doing? Was she just lying? Was she caught up in the fame and all of the attention she was getting and everybody talking about her?
I gave her the benefit of the doubt. You give the benefit of the doubt to people on your own side. I thought, okay, I don't know why she gave us those binders if she didn't have good stuff in those binders, but she said there was another story. A whistleblower told her there were truckloads of documents. Hopefully she'll produce. And I gave her time. I was patient. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But here's the thing, Chris. That day in the White House, Pam Bondi bragged about making that cover sheet on that binder that you're showing on the screen. That cover sheet that reads the most transparent administration in history. Epstein Files Phase 1. She told us she made that. She printed it. She put it in that binder. How can you square that behavior with what she posted on the Department of Justice website on Sunday saying, actually, there's nothing here. All the things, all the incongruencies in the narrative that you've pointed out, that you've observed with your own eyes, it's not true. And we're not providing any evidence to you to show you that what you might have believed is not actually substantiated by evidence. You're just supposed to take my word for it after she had told us something different multiple times. This is why I've come out and said President Trump shouldn't tolerate this kind of behavior. Pam Bondi has become a liability to him because people care about this story. They care not so much because they care about the Epstein list itself, but because they care about justice. That's what they voted for. They voted for justice. They voted for transparency, and they're not getting either of those things with this kind of unforced error from Pam Bondi.
So again, Wayne, is the president trying to, with this action in DC, is he trying to distract from this? And should we really even be talking about all of this?
I believe it's a clear distraction, right? He has a pattern of when things aren't going the way he wants it to go to create distractions, right? He is excellent at doing that. He tries to, during COVID, he would do it. During other times, when impeachment hearings that he's had, he would do the same thing, right? This is a man, if I remember right, the Washington Post had over 34,000 lives on record, right? So you're dealing with a person who he lies like he breathes, right? I don't understand why he would receive the benefit of the doubt of anything. Because if the roles were reversed, if this was Joe Biden, if this was Kamala Harris, if this was Barack Obama, and they were this bansheed about with a child sex predator like Jeffrey Epstein, and there was a report or files that were about to come out that would pretty much sink their presidency. And then what's the movie from the 90s? Wag the Dog, right? We're in a very wag the dog moment, right? But instead of waging war overseas, he's waging war on predominantly African American communities. I mean, we see what's happening with ICE and a lot of the brown communities, but he's doing this to distract from the Epstein files. There is no other way to look at it, right? I mean, if this was any other person, if this was the CEO of Target, and he had this track record of lying on this level, right? And then all of a sudden, like Target, the CEO just got he announced he's leaving yesterday, right? They lost $12 billion, and all of a sudden he wants to, change the topic that, well, the rotisserie chickens at Walmart aren't that good, so maybe we need to launch an investigation about that. Would you listen to him, right? So why do we give Trump the same benefit of the doubt,
And that's one thread that I want to kind of sort of continue to go on, because really, I think that if you had somebody different, right, in terms of the messaging of, okay, crime in DC or any other place for that matter, but let's take DC now. If you had, like, say, a Nikki Haley or a former governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, for example, messaging on this, I think, people do want, yes, safety. People want safety. Again, I emphasize here that DC is not the cesspool that I think some portrayed this stuff to be. It's not a zero crime stuff, let's not get it twisted, but it's nowhere near. And again, I've been working in media for 15 years out in DC. And not once have I felt that, somebody was going to jump me or anything. Now, of course, I don't want to dismiss anybody that has had any negative experiences in terms of crime and whatnot. I don't want to dismiss those anecdotes and things, but we have to look at the bigger picture of our nation's capital and think about, okay, is this really the cesspool? Is this, a crime infested? Because the way, if you watch certain stuff, Fox News, that sort of thing, you would think that, we're just walking around, I don't know, Baghdad or something. Would this be, though, what is being done, would this be better received had there been a different messenger? Because, of course, right now with the current administration, again, you lose based on the actions and previous actions in the administration. You do kind of lose that benefit of the doubt, don't you?
100%. But also, and we're speaking on crime, during his first administration, 2019, 2020, right? We had some of the highest murder rates in decades. The last 4 years, we've had some of the lowest murder rates in decades, right? These are not subjective numbers. Right now, they're trying to impugn the validity of the numbers when these are FBI statistics. These are things where, for example, I believe DC is at a 30-year low on their murder rate, right? And another city they like to mention, Baltimore, since I believe his name is Mayor Brandon Scott,
It's not, yeah.
they've had a 62% decline in murders. right?
Mhm.
Chicago seeing a decline in murders, right? Philadelphia, my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, right? There is a trend where crime is starting to get under control. But that doesn't go with the narrative of these liberal blue cities with these woke DEIs running around doing drive-bys on real Americans. And it doesn't, like I currently live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? And quiet as kept, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, they have some of the highest murder rates per capita, right? Now, personally, I don't feel like Tulsa is a particularly unsafe city, nor do I do with Oklahoma City, right? But these are numbers you can't deny, right? Where is the outcry to have the National Guard in Oklahoma City, right? You don't hear it, right?
No.
Jackson, Mississippi has one of the highest murder rates in the country, right? That's a red state. The governor's Tate Reeves. Where's the National Guard, right? But in these blue states, it's painting this picture. If you think back to the election, there were a lot of videos on social media and the run up of 2023, 2024 of people doing gang shoplifting, right? Going into places and that that flash mob thing. Come to find out, a lot of it was being engineered by a white woman from Northern California who I believe she was a police officer, right? And the story went away. And as soon as the election went away, there were no more migrant caravans. All these things just immediately stopped. And then when the Doge staffer, affectionately called Big Balls, which is a very interesting moniker for a young man to go by in the professional environment, you and I, Eugene, both know how hard we've worked to be taken seriously professionally. And if we showed up somewhere calling ourselves big balls, that would probably be the end of our career. But that's the kind of hypocrisy we're dealing with these people. It is basically freedom for me and subjugation for thee, right? So the subjugation we see now is the militarization of the police. DC is the test case. And like you said, Nikki Haley, Governor Hogan, the message might be taken differently, but the pushback will still be the same, right? Crime has been declining. You all are supposed to be small government conservatives. The only time you are small government conservatives is when you're out of power. As soon as you get in power, you run up the deficit, you give ICE an additional $165 billion a year, which would make them the fourth most well funded military in the world, by the way. So, with all that being said, I think we're running into a situation where he is trying to test the limits of his power, right? And I don't believe that Nikki Haley or Larry Hogan would even attempt these things because, as much as I might disagree with them ideologically, they don't have the same stomach for autocracy and fascism as Trump does.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely very, very different. For those two, especially Governor Haley, when she was running. I mean, I'll just as an aside, I'll give her credit that she was the one person, well, probably the only person who was running on the Republican side who acknowledged that climate change was actually a thing.
Hmm.
So I mean, definitely those guys are certainly not cut from the same cloth. And I like what you pointed out about what has been going on with some of these states that are run by Republicans. And I just want to throw out for our viewers here a study that was done by Third Way. We'll link to that in the YouTube description below. But every year since 2000, so including the president's first term, the murder rate in red states exceeded blue states. Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama have the highest murder rates in the country, and only
Hmm.
Maryland replaced Alabama in 1 year, 2015. And I will directly quote from this study, which says here, quote, the excuse that sky-high red state murder rates are because of their blue cities is without merit. Even after removing the county with the largest city from red states and not from blue states, red state murder rates were still 20% higher in 2021 and 16% higher in 2022. So that is definitely something that really a lot of people should keep in mind, because I don't think that we keep, and I'm not saying, us necessarily, but I don't think a lot of people keep kind of sort of that same energy. If we're going to talk about safety, yeah, that is fine. Let's have the conversation about safety. but it should be an equal opportunity stuff. It should be ecumenical.
Hmm.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to go to now is to whether or not these actions are counterproductive. The president met this month with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, and
Hmm.
that the press conferences and things, they can kind of sort of go pretty much anywhere these days.
Hmm.
And one of the things that was mentioned by the president was that the restaurant reservations after these actions that have been taken by the administration have gone up in DC, that they're going to restaurants. But yeah, you're shaking your head right now. You know this. That is not the case. So I have a chart up here. They're going down. They're going down 20-30%. And
Hmm.
then I want to read this just recently from the Labyrinth game shop. I think they're based in Campbell Hill, and I'm going to read part of the post here saying, quote, "This is killing our businesses. Local restaurants and retailers are dying. People are scared to come to DC. I have customers telling me they are scared to get on the metro, not due to crime, but due to the National Guard. This is ridiculous. This is not solving any problems. It's making them worse. I'm all for stopping crime. Labyrinth has been robbed, and it makes me furious, but this is not the way." So, again, is this stuff going to end up having the reverse effect? Again, I just cited from this Labyrinth game shop here that
Hmm.
says that, yeah, they've been robbed. Nobody wants to be robbed or anything. But then is this the equivalent of, taking, the sledgehammer, and killing an ant with it? You know,
Hmm. The police are literally, it's like a terror when you think about it, right? It is putting an undue tax and burden on these businesses because I think last week was restaurant week in DC, right? My son lives in DC. He loves the food scene, right? And he said that he talked to a couple of people and traffic was down and different things, and I saw things on social as high as 30% restaurant reservations had been declining, and restaurants are already dealing with razor thin margins, right? And especially in a very highly competitive food city like DC, you're in a situation where 3, 4 months of this can put a lot of places out of business. We're already dealing with spending prices. We're already dealing with, because of those, there's a lot of federal people, employees who've lost their jobs and they're not going out and eating out as much as they were, right? So there's already challenges, but Trump isn't a three-dimensional thinker, right? Trump is literally like a petulant child who wants what he wants when he wants it, right? And same with his military parade, we have a situation where, um, you know, what he's doing is, as with everything, it has so many side effects that whatever little tangible benefit you got, it's not worth it, right? So if this lasts, which I think it will, because you know,
yeah, I was going to ask, do you think that, after the 30 days, do you think Congress is going to
yes,
continue this,
yes,
especially
Mike
with the
Johnson
makeup that
will.
we've got?
Yeah, Mike Johnson will give him whatever he wants. So I can't see them now. Um, I can't see them now backing off of this. He wants it, he gets it. With his big beautiful bill, he made a couple of threats, and before you know it, the ones who wouldn't comply, they gave it up. Pretty much whatever he wants, he gets. But the thing that's more worrying for me, even beyond the DC situation, is what happens when he goes to Chicago? What happens when he goes to San Francisco? What happens when he goes to LA? And he's going to, right? And the California situation is going to be because obviously Governor Newsom isn't going to say, "Hey, bring in the federal troops," right? And he's going to say, "I don't care," right? And now we're going to find. I feel like they want a situation similar to the ICE protest earlier this year. They're looking for a reason, right? They're looking for a justification so they can say, "I'm going to declare the insurrection," right? And then I could put federal troops wherever I want you, right? And you know, I had a group of friends. I will say this as a caveat. I had a group of friends. Some of them are actually now former friends. But we had a group chat and we talked a lot about politics and life and things for years. And they always call me an alarmist because I call Trump a fascist, right? I said he is clearly a dictator. He clearly does not care about the will of the people, right? So whether this turns into a situation where restaurants nationwide go out of business, he doesn't care. I mean, he's used to it. He has 6 bankruptcies. He's used to driving things out of business, right? That's actually what he's best at, right? So I would think overall, I think the side effects from this is going to cause even more economic turmoil in a time in which the PPI went up to 3.1% last month with inflation. Uh, Vegetables alone went up 38% in price. So now it's going to be too expensive to eat at home and too expensive to go out, right? So people are going to get angrier and upset, all because of this man needed to hide the fact that him and Jeffrey Epstein were doing some unspeakable things with young girls.
It's been really in looking at this, looking at what's been going on in DC, fascinating. In fact, I recently was on a train at like 6:30 on a weekday, and
Hmm.
I have never seen Metro so empty.
Hmm.
I have never seen Metro so empty. Like 6:30 p.m. on a weeknight. This is when people are trying to get home. You
Hmm.
know, people are coming out of work, happy hours, that sort of thing. I
Hmm.
have never seen Metro so empty. Even walking around DC, it
Hmm.
is kind of sort of almost, I dare say, it's almost almost a ghost town. And one of the things I do want to touch on is I'm thinking about some of these things we've seen, of course, the government tout all of the arrests and things. There was one guy I'm sure you probably saw who threw the Subway sandwich, who
Hmm.
allegedly threw the Subway sandwich at a police officer, Judge Janine Pirro, who is the U.S. attorney in the Justice Department. She had initially charged this man with a felony
Hmm.
for throwing again a Subway sandwich. Now, look, I do not condone throwing anything at police officers. I don't. But charging this stuff with a felony, I mean, that was over the top, and the judge agreed, with that. That this was, I think his term was, it was excessive.
Hmm.
So when you have all of this stuff happening, I mean, what does this say about the current state of our affairs with the way that this is happening? Because you also mentioned midterms. Do you think that there's going to be a price to pay for this administration in the midterm elections? You'll hear that answer and much more from WayneTronics as we bring you the second part of our conversation next Wednesday, September 3rd, right here on this YouTube channel. So do hit the subscribe button right now so that you are the first to see the episode when it drops. And it's going to be a very, very busy September on this program because in addition to our regular edition on September 24th, on the 18th, we are going to have a special edition of Fit to Speak in which we will provide analysis of the vote, which will formalize the deal for the Washington Commanders to have their new stadium on the site of the former RFK Stadium, which is currently being demolished. I, as your humble host, will be at the Wilson Building to report on and witness this historic vote. It is shaping up to be a watershed moment for not only the city, but for the greater DMV and I dare say these United States. So do join us right here on this YouTube channel, youtube.com/the CSE channel. Hit that subscribe button for me, won't you? And do be a part of a truly commanding September. Thank you so much for watching. Listen, there's going to be a lot more where that came from, so you better stay tuned to catch it all. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media accounts for more information, including all of the bonus content that you'll see from today's show. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell on our YouTube channel so that you do not miss any of our episodes. And do subscribe to our newsletter, csemedia.substack.com, to support all of the work that we do here. Till next time, I'm Eugene, and remember, we will not be silenced.